And welcome back to the castle, everybody. This is Nightsaber Z42, and today's little Roll20 tutorial is about the new UI interface. And we'll also get into some dynamic lighting stuff as well. So let's jump into one of the modules. This will be the Humblewood official module that I have purchased. I renamed it as Test HW. So this is kind of where I go if I need a page or a map from this specific game. I can pull it into my own because I had already created the other game and already had players before the module was even released. So what we'll do, let's take a look at the new UI, some stuff for the new UI. So I'm actually going to pull off a character as soon as I get to all of the NPCs. There we go. Let's pull this one. So I have a token here, and it's already got the HP and the AC all set up. So if I double click, it'll take me into the token settings. So everything here, I think, is supposed to be more streamlined. So let's go over things that are the same. The three dots here next to the general, you have your player permissions, so they can see everything here, or they'll be able to edit it. So you'll want to click edit, especially if you have things that are controlled by certain characters. So it represents character, so that is the token represents this specific character journal. So it'll take that character sheet and it'll link it up together. You can also do a generic token that is controlled by it could be controlled by a player, but usually when you have a player that actually has a character sheet, you'll link that up to whatever character sheet that they have. Here you have your different bars. If you put in a value for the second space, that'll actually create a bar above. The attributes, you can set it to whatever attribute that is linked inside of the character sheet. If you're doing NPCs, it's better to leave the HP just in the bars itself. Don't actually link it to your link it to any attribute, because if you do and you pull multiples of that, so let's say I actually have some bandits out, if I change the value for one of the bandits, it'll change it for all. So therefore you want to keep this as none. AC, you can actually have a specific attribute that would be okay, unless they cast a spell and the AC actually changes or something like that. So can the players actually see that bar? Can they edit it? So yeah, we'll say that the players, if this is like an NPC or a different or actual player character, and you want them to see each other's HP, then you can go ahead and click C and it'll be visible to everyone, just like that. So you can have it hidden, so it's hidden from everybody, only visible to the person that controls it, or visible to everybody. So there you go. So you can actually also change where that location of the bar is, whether it's above, on top, overlapping a little bit, just like so. Bottom overlapping, which is just the opposite on the bottom, or just below the entire token. So standard practice, I want to see the whole awesome token, so I just tend to keep it above. I don't even mess with that. And then if you really want to, you can have an aura for the token. So let's say that there's something special about them. I can go ahead and, whoops, not 100 feet. I could put in something like 10 feet, save that, and boom. Now they have a nice little aura. Maybe that's like they're holding an object and everything inside of that aura just like burns, or like, like a fear effect type of deal, or like you're very stinky and anybody inside of that aura needs to make a con save. So you can set that for players to see as well. So if I click on C, then everybody can see that aura, or just the editor. And you can also change the colors and the shape it takes. So there you go. So that's all of the token settings for the details. For the GM notes, I mean, it is what it is. This is just standard notes for the GM, although I would probably maybe use that in the character sheet itself. And actually, let me get rid of that aura because it's going to bother me. So here's where a lot of the meat is going to come from in this video. It's the dynamic lighting and the legacy lighting. So before I talk about tokens and dynamic lighting, or just lighting in general, let's take a look at an example of how this works. So I'm actually going to open up one of these pre-built pages. Let's go to Bandit Camp, and these pages are really cool because it already puts like all the monsters where they're supposed to be, and as well as starting locations. So I really dig these little modules that Roll20 has. So when we talk about lighting, there's a couple things to know. The first thing is you actually have a dynamic lighting layer. This is separate from your map, your objects, and your GM info layer, which you can use to hide monsters and stuff. So like this little Gerbine, he's actually in the GM layer. Yeah, and if you want to expose him, just put him into the token layer like that. So everything that happens in your dynamic lighting will actually happen in this dynamic lighting layer. You can set your opacity too, by the way. So like if I really want to know what my players can see, or like whatnot, or sorry, what my players can see that's on the GM info layer, I can go ahead and toggle that. This actually has nothing to do with dynamic lighting. That feature is actually in the page settings itself. So when we're on the dynamic lighting, you see that there's a bunch of lines drawn, most notably along the walls and the tents. So if I put a character here, let's go back to Arduin. Let's say I take this guy right here, and I click on Control L. You can see that he can't see anything. So there's walls here. There's dynamic lighting, sorta. Let's take a look. So dynamic lighting is actually turned off for this page. Instead, they use legacy lighting, which is the feature that came before it. So everything here has basically been replaced with dynamic lighting. But this would be good for like if you have players who have low bandwidth, I suppose, then this would probably be a better option. So let's take a look. So in legacy lighting, by default, this mod has enabled dynamic lighting and enforce line of sight. You can also go ahead and click on only update to on drop. So that means when the player actually releases their token, they can see where they have dropped it. Whereas if this was unchecked, if they start moving it around, the dynamic lighting also moves with it. I don't really see the benefits of having this, but let's take a look. So let's say that I want to give this character some sight. Well, he's going to emit a light of some sort, right? Or maybe he has dark vision. Who knows? Let's go ahead and start with the light source. So he's got a torch in his hand, and the torch is going to be, I'm actually going to make it 20 feet so you guys can see a difference. So the light radius, and then the first box is for the actual light source. The second box is for dim light. So after the 20 feet comes the dim lighting. So he's going to have 30 feet total. All right. Can't really see much, so let's click Control L. Whoops, my bad. That's not gonna work because dynamic lighting is actually turned off. So, and he's got sight. There we go. There, that is everything that he can see. Now you see that there's a slight ring. That's his light source, and he can see basically everything else. This right here, I'm actually gonna put to the GM layer, is a light source as well. So if I click on this, now he can just see that he's got 20 feet of light and then 10 feet of dim light beyond that. So that's kind of how the legacy lighting works here. Pretty good stuff. The thing you need to remember is if you want to create a map that has some sort of dynamic lighting, first click on dynamic lighting, then you're going to start drawing lines. And it's best to make it a nice bright color so you can see everything. Oh, so you can actually see what is a line and what isn't. So if I add a line here into the dynamic lighting, now my token cannot see beyond that. You see, it's like there's actually a wall there, a physical wall that blocks it. So everything that you want to be a wall that would obscure lighting, you need to actually draw that. So a couple links that I'll post in the description down below. This is a dynamic lighting example, and this kind of gives you the best performance guide, which is really handy to look at, although this hasn't been updated for the new UI. So do take that into consideration. But it does mention that you probably shouldn't use freehand tools. So the second one is an actual page on dynamic lighting and just what the different features do. Again, if I'm not mistaken, this is the old UI. So also take that into consideration, but it's still worth a read because the terminology is going to be the same across the platform. So that's how the legacy lighting works. Let's do a different example. Let's go over here to, actually, let's keep it on the same page. I'm going off script here, which is pretty bad. I'm actually going to get rid of the dynamic lighting from the legacy lighting. And instead, I'm going to turn on dynamic lighting, the updated version. So this feature is in active development, so be aware of that. If you want to go back, you need to turn on the legacy, which is right here. Turn that on. Revealed areas in one system will not be revealed in the others. So just be aware of that. So let's click on or turn on dynamic lighting. And so let's take a look at some of the features here. I'm going to get rid of, whoops, I actually need this. Let's take a look at some of the features here. So in this dynamic lighting, you have a lot more options than you had in the previous build, I suppose. So first thing, there's the Explorer mode. So what this does, it reveals areas of the map layer that players have already explored. Although if you go back into the legacy lighting, it will not keep that information. So it's based on your play style, I would suppose. So I would use this like in an area like here, where, or like in a dungeon crawl. That would be the best example. So like say on this type of a map, where my players are moving around and exploring, I would turn that on. That way they can see where they've been. But let's say that you actually have like some sort of a maze map or a labyrinth, and it's easy to get all twisty wobbly down there and lost, then I would probably turn that off and let the players actually explore, and get lost, because I think that would actually make things a little bit more exciting. But Explorer mode will just kind of keep the areas that they've been to and reveal it. Daylight mode is if you are outside, like in our bandit camp, you would actually click this, and this is basically just for, let's say, for line of sight. That's pretty much it. Like, I'm outside, I shouldn't have to worry about which areas my players have explored. This is an outdoor area, so they should be able to see all, except for the areas that can block line of sight. So that is what I would use that for. And actually, I will show you an example. So let's turn on daylight mode. I'm going to turn vision on for him, and now he can see everything. There we go, Control L. And so now he can actually see everything that is illuminated, but his sight is still blocked by the walls or the other things that he cannot see through. So if I didn't have that turned on, let's take a look. then he cannot see, unless that specific token either has night vision or has some sort of a light source. So let me repeat that, just in case you got a little confused. The reason why the screen is now dark is because this token is blind. You would have to actually turn on night vision and give him a field of, give him some sort of a vision distance, or he has to actually be carrying some sort of a bright light source, like 10 feet, save settings, boom. Now he can see. So daylight mode basically just makes it so the whole map is illuminated, if that makes sense. Okay. So we have daylight mode, update when token drops. So if you've noticed, every time I move my token, the shadows move around with it. That's what he can see. But let's say I didn't want that, just in case, you know, I have a player that's thinking about his movement and whatnot, you know, best practices have been forgotten. I'll go ahead and turn this on. So that means this is going to stay the same until I release, and it updates whenever I release the token. So I think that's a pretty handy feature, just to make sure that my players aren't accidentally spoiling anything, like something around the corner, like this little Mapak bandit up here. Yeah, I see you. Can't hide from me. And with that, you actually can change the opacity. So if I want to actually see what my players can see, I can turn the opacity up to 100%, or if that doesn't even matter, I can turn it down to 0%. But I think it's always best to have something, probably not like 100%, but enough that you can tell what your players can actually see. And also like what's hidden underneath. So that way you can actually remember and click on the things that you need. So that's how dynamic lighting works on the map side. But there are some things that we need to do to eat the token. So just like with the legacy lighting, we actually need to change the properties of the token so that it can actually see. So if I double click, I can see the details, the GM notes, dynamic lighting, legacy lighting. We've already messed with the legacy lighting, so let's take a look at dynamic lighting. So if I have dynamic lighting turned on the page, the first thing I need to do for each token is turn on vision. Even if they can't see, I need to turn on vision because they might be able to see something. And a great example of this is actually here in the GM layer. This guy right here is a I think I might have done a bad thing. Let's go ahead and paste that into the, yeah. And actually, what are the properties of this guy? Dynamic lighting, I think it's a legacy lighting thing. Yeah. So this is actually pretty cool. I'm actually gonna break script here again. So this object actually emits a light source. So let's say that you have a player that drops a torch. This would be perfect. So you can see all players see light source. It has 30 feet of light with 60 feet of dim light in a 360 arc. By the way, this is the angle. So I can, if a player actually has a lantern that points forward, you can actually set this to probably like 90 degrees. That way the light source points in a forward arc. And so that's something really cool. A little advanced tip there. So let's go back to, so that's in the GM layer. So this ball emits a light source. And actually, you know what? I changed my mind. That's going back to the GM layer because we don't want the whole area to be illuminated for reasons that I will be explaining. So you need to turn on vision. For this fact alone, like there's a campfire here, all of the creatures and players will be able to see this campfire unless they're like literally blind. Like they have no eyeballs and stuff like that. Yeah. So once that is turned on, you can determine, you need to decide two things. One, does that player have night vision? So if I'm in Humblewood, if I was a Vulpin, let me get Frey Meriden here. Players killed her in the very first session, which is pretty sad. She actually has night vision. She can see 60 feet. So let's change that to, let's translate that into dynamic lighting. So she's going to have vision. She's going to have night vision of 60 feet. Night vision effect. This is actually pretty interesting. I have not taken a look at that. But I think it's pretty cool, though, that you can actually change the tint color of the night vision. So let me go ahead and let's see. Oh, I guess it doesn't really do anything. Look at that. It kind of sucks. I think I need to turn off a little feature called daylight mode. And let's go ahead and turn off update token drop that as well. So, boom. So now I can see that this is what she can see. She can see 60 feet in any direction. And let's go ahead and turn that. We'll go ahead and scale that down to 10 feet so you can actually see a difference. So that's how much she can see as I kind of go around the dynamic lighting layers. You can see the shadows turning over. This guy right here is emitting a bright light, which is why she can see it. Because bright light means that there's something physical that is emitting a light. So that means all of the players and all of the creatures on this map should be able to see that. Whereas if I just click on this guy, Control L for that, that should not actually, oh, she does not emit a light. Well, we're going to change that. I'm going to switch that off to that. Uh-oh. We have ourselves a genuine feature that should not be. Oh, please tell me it's not in advanced. Nope, it's not in advanced lighting. Uh-oh. I think we have a little mistake here. Because I should not be able to see Frey Meriden. But that is okay. So he can emit a bright light. He's got 10 feet of total light. And so there is that. Now, normally your players should not be able to see each other outside of their range of light, which is kind of concerning why I can see Frey over here. But I digress. So I can also limit the field of vision if I want to. So 50% of vision is before the center, 50% is after. So I wouldn't mess with that too much unless you have somebody that can only who's like nearsighted or something, I guess. I don't know. We've already done bright light, but again, bright light is the amount of light that is emitted, and low light is the amount of light after the bright light. So if I have 10 feet of bright light and 20 feet of low light, the bright light will come first, and then you'll see dim light after that, as we can see in this example right here. So the 10 feet right here is bright light, and everything after is dim light. Although I would really like it if there was some better way to tell when the low lighting actually starts. And then, of course, I can do directional lighting. So if I wanted it to be, let's do 45 degrees, I guess. We'll see what that does. So now it's 45 degrees in front. So let's say that she's got like a lantern, a directional lantern going. You can set that to 45 degrees, or even probably better to do it at 90%. I don't know how physics works. That's not even physics. But there you go. You have light. A light source right there. She will be able to see the Gallus over here, Ardwin, because he has a torch or something along those lines. But if I were to take that off, then she would no longer be able to see him, as you can see when I click on that. He will be able to see her, though, because she's got the torch or the lantern. So let's say if I click on night vision, let's get rid of bright light. Will they still be able to see each other? Well, I wonder. Because she has night vision of 10 feet. And yes, I think that doesn't make any sense to me. You should not be able to see somebody's night vision because that's perception based. I think that might be a flaw, a bug. So give this token the ability to see without any light. And actually, let's go ahead and get rid of this and let's get somebody else. Okay, so let's turn on lighting. Let's give him some night vision, 10 feet. Let's see what happens. So nope, yep. You're still going to be able to see it, even though I'm looking through Ardwin's eyes. I think that's a bug feature. That should not happen, and it's never happened in any other builds than this one. So that might be something to let the devs know. For advanced settings, you have the light multiplier. So this changes the effective radius of the light for this player. So like if I want them to see 200% more of like 10 feet to make it 20 feet, then I can change that to 200%. I don't really see the need for that since you can just change the vision, I guess. But you know, they know what they're doing, I guess, except for when it comes to night vision, because that totally doesn't make any sense. So that is how dynamic lighting works, and that's with the whole new UI changes. Couple things to make note of. Make sure that you're on your dynamic lighting. Draw your lines to build your walls, what you can't see through, and then change your tokens so that they have some sort of vision. Even if they don't have a torch, they should have vision because they can see other people's light sources as well. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Give any type of feedback, anything you want to see made into a tutorial. And actually, I just remembered it. Somebody commented on one of my previous videos on dynamic lighting about Explorer mode. So here's the thing about Explorer mode. Let's say that I actually have dynamic lighting. I have Explorer mode revealed right here. The only way that I can see the Explorer mode actually working is if the token you rejoin as a player. So if I press Control L, that's only for line of sight. It actually doesn't mean that that's what they see on the map. So if I want to make sure that Explorer mode is actually working, I need to rejoin as a player. Did I click on it? Yes, okay, I did click on it. It is just taking a while. Wow, it's being really, really slow. Oh, you're kidding me? Make sure that all the players are on the same page. So let's make sure all the players are on the Bandicamp layer or on the Bandicamp map. Rejoin as a player yet again. Which means it's going to take 5 minutes. I should have one token that I should be able to control. Oh, really? Really? Oh, we're just making all the mistakes today. Make sure I got dynamic lighting on. Uh-oh. It would probably be very helpful if the actual token was on the token layer. I guess this would kind of explain why the two characters could see each other. Let's test that out. Hey, it does. Okay. So if you have night vision, actually, let's test this. Does this really work? Nope. Okay. Still didn't work. Oh well. So I got that. Let's go ahead and rejoin as a player. You are mine, right? I don't want to have to come back as a GM to fix something. All right. So when I move it around, you can see that there's some space from where I've explored. Everything else that I should be able to see, like this area over here, is blacked out. It's not grayed out or anything like that until I actually come in and see it. Actually kind of makes a little bit more sense. Now I actually can't see my friend over here because he's outside of my cone of light. Even though he has night vision, he actually doesn't have bright light. So I guess when you use Control L, you can't actually see what other players can't see, if that makes any sense. So as a GM, if I do Control L, I'm going to see everybody's light source, even if I'm controlling somebody that has a bright light source and the person with night vision is outside. You can clearly see that my night vision guy right here is blind. I can't see him when he's outside of my light radius. So there we go. It wasn't a bug. I was just being stupid. So yes, hopefully that it answers your question about Explorer mode, buddy. It doesn't work if you're the GM, because as a GM, you can see everything at all times. It only works if you are the player. So Explorer mode only works as the player. So you can see I've mapped out some more of the map. This is where that handy dandy update on token drop would be very handy. So I don't have a player just going, whoa, look at this. I can see everything. I can see the whole entire map. So there you go. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to leave a comment down below and give this video a huge thumbs up, especially if you found it very informative, if you learned something, or if you have any other questions. Feel free to comment down below and I will do my best to reply and find the answers for you. And I will see you guys in the next video.